All right, go. All right, lightning quick introduction to Kotlin. I'll skip the slide about myself, but I'll put these slides online so you can go find me on all the things. I will call out, I just started at NextGen yesterday, today, so.
Congratulations!
So we're doing 7-minute Kotlin, which is 1 minute better than 8-minute apps here. If anybody has seen something about Mary, you might be asking why not 6-minute Kotlin, and that's because nobody learns Kotlin in 6 minutes. And if you don't get that joke, follow that link when you get the slides. So what is Kotlin? A modern programming language. It was created by JetBrains, makers of IntelliJ. I think really they created it to kind of rewrite a lot of their huge suite of IDEs and huge code base. I think they tried to do it in Scala, it didn't really work out, and so Kotlin was born. It's open source, Apache 2.0, you can contribute to it on GitHub. It was conceived in 2010, 1.0 came about 6 years later, so languages are hard to do. But 1.3 RC is out now, and it's maturing pretty nicely. 1.3 is what we'll be looking at. So, it's a JVM language, but it was inspired by Java, Scala, Groovy, C#, and the little spec sharp derivative there. A bunch of languages. Basically, the idea was, let's just take the best things that everybody else is doing and make one language out of them that we think is really good. It's highly interoperable with Java, as I mentioned. JetBrains rewriting their whole suite of IDEs. Well, we're not going to do that overnight. So, very easy to have both Java and Kotlin in a single project, and we'll be seeing that when we get into some code in a bit. Google announced at Google I/O in 2017 that it's an officially supported language on Android. So Kotlin's huge on Android because of that reason. You get all those older Android phones with 1.6 kind of version of Java on it. This allows you to work in a modern programming language, kind of a more up-to-date one, and get all those cool language features, but you can still compile down. Kotlin compiles down to 1.6 and it still does, and you don't lose any language features when you do that. You get all the stuff still, so pretty cool. Also compiles to JavaScript, so you can write, browser apps in it, you can write React apps in it, transpiles, I should have said, and you can also do Node.js stuff on the server side with it as well. So also compiles to native with C, and so you're going to operate with C, Swift, and that gets you on iOS, Mac OS, Windows, Linux, WebAssembly also. Basically, LLVM is the backend, so anything that the LLVM backend compiler can output to, it'll work on. So Internet of Things, also compatible with lots of little smaller chips and things like that. So more than just compiling to those things, they're working on multi-platform project support. So you can do a project and have a core library of Kotlin, and you're sharing it across iOS and Android and maybe your web app and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So pretty cool stuff. Where is Kotlin? It's an island in the Baltic Sea west of St. Petersburg in Russia, as opposed to Java, which is an island in Indonesia, southeast of Singapore, fun fact. Why Kotlin? So like I said, they were trying to create a very pragmatic language. So the priorities and the key values in the language are readability, reuse, interoperability, as we talked about with more than just Java, all those platforms. It's not just that we can make a Swift app and it will compile to that. You can talk from Swift back into your Kotlin code with those shared libraries. So they're focusing on bidirectional interoperability with all that multi-platform support, and they focus on safety, which we'll talk about in a second. And of course, they were a tooling vendor, so it's very toolable language. About 40% less code versus Java, so people are rewriting their Android apps and Java apps completely in it. They're saving quite a lot of code. It tries to be a very concise language. Readability is still the priority, so there's some areas where it's a little more actually explicit, but overall you shrink a lot, you save a lot of typing. They makes doing the right thing easier. They've basically tried to take pretty much the entire effective Java book by Joshua Block, and basically condense it into the language. So a lot of the things in effective Java that you might follow are just built into the language, or the language makes it hard not to do those things. And we talked about the multi-platform support. So Java was write once, run anywhere, and that was kind of the amazing initial thing about it. But now we have iOS and Android tabs, all these platforms sort of sprung up. So by having that multi-platform support, they're sort of rebooting that write once, run anywhere idea, which is pretty neat. Okay, enough death by PowerPoint. Let's go. See some Kotlin code here. So this is just a standard Kotlin file. It's in a project, a Gradle project, just along with some Java code as well. So something you'd be pretty familiar with. Nothing too exciting there. So let's look at some Hello World. So first, let's look at Hello World in Java. Just just to get our bearings. So your typical should look pretty familiar to everyone, etc. But now let's look at it in this one. Let's see what it looks like in Kotlin. So basically the same exact program, but as you can see, we're shrinking this way, we're shrinking that way, but same amount of information, a little bit better signal to noise ratio is the idea. So that's kind of pervasive throughout the whole language. You get the same stuff done, but they've just kind of tidied it up a fair bit. All right, what's next? And we'll see some more. Oh, that was the wrong unsplit. There we go. So Kotlin has classes, so you might have seen in that last slide there was no class there. Don't worry, no need to panic. We do have good old-fashioned classes, so let's take a look at those. So you just declare class, so the syntax should look pretty familiar. No curly braces if there's no body. I mean, I don't know what, not too many empty classes you're going to do. Let's see, running out of time, so I'll skip all the stuff about inheritance and all that other stuff. It's all in there. Let's see. Okay, data classes. We want to show this one off. So data classes in Java, typical data transfer object POJO, like for a person, would look like this. We've got our fields, we've got our constructors overloaded, we've got getters, we've got setters, we've got equals, which you got to do right, hash code, toString, you all know. So let's look at the same thing in Kotlin. So in Kotlin, that same thing, I've wrapped it so I would fit it in this screen here, but it's basically a one-liner. You say data class person, you create some properties for a name, favorite programming language, you can even default those, and you get essentially the same exact thing. You get all the equals, toString, hash code, it all just gets generated for you. And you even get a copy constructor, so no more worrying about clone. And out of time, so that's
Well, we can add 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay, great.
Audience participation, 2 more minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
This was a 3-hour time. So yeah, we have properties, we have first class functions and properties, so you can put those right in the package level. And if you want to know more about that, this code's on GitHub. If anybody's familiar with Stevie's blog rants, I highly recommend Execution in the Kingdom of Nouns, where he talks about how great first class functions are. Let's see, super duper strings, you have string templates, nice variable type system. I'll skip that, but I'll get into nullability, which is a cool one. So null safety, we said it would be a safe language. So Kotlin goes to great lengths to make null pointer exception go away. So you basically, you can't take a string and assign null to it. It's not an option by default. If you want to do that, you can say that you have a string question mark, and that's true of all the types, int, boolean, etc. So by default, you're just going to not do null in Kotlin. If you need null, there are lots of ways to do it. There are operators and things you can use. Got a file error there. So they have some neat operators. I'll skip over most of those, and then ultimately, if you really, really want a null pointer and exception, they have this bang bang dot operator you can use to say, I love null pointer exceptions. So, it's still there. The interoperability with Java is still there. And let's see, what else? I'll switch. There we go. Functions, all right. Yeah, basically don't have time. There's a lot more stuff here. So I want to just show a last couple slides. All right. So if you want to learn more, San Diego Kotlin user group, as Paul mentioned, kotlinlang.org, KotlinConf videos. Join the Kotlin Slack channel. We have a San Diego channel in there that you can do. And you can try it online. And these slides are on speaker deck, so you can click all those links. And thank you, Next Gen.
Yay!